Get your stinking rat out. It's late night large.
Welcome to a late night large with his fingerprints all over the cookie jar. Eating a dozen pink wafers at once is me, Aaron Bliss, and with a giant chocolate chip on his shoulder is Mike Large. Sorry, both shoulders.
Yeah, but yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, I'm all right, Mike. Yeah, well balanced with a chocolate chip on each shoulder. So, how we been doing this week, Mike?
Same old, isn't it? Same old shit.
Yeah,
Doing all right. Just
loving the second lockdown life.
yeah, it's ideal, really.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay.
Love it. No, just been all right. Just growing dirty.
Yeah.
Keeping on.
Been some pretty foul weather this week, hasn't it? Really.
It's been fucking miserable, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty shit. But to be fair, it's not like it's scuppered anyone's plans, is it? So.
No, I mean, you could argue that
if you're gonna have shit weather, have it during a lockdown.
Exactly. And to be fair, is there any better time for shit weather than being inside, warm and cozy, listening to a storm battering everyone outside?
No, yeah, I suppose you're right.
I'm trying to come up with something positive from this, but speaking of positivity, Mike. So last time we spoke, there was some rare rays of positivity breaking through the dark storm clouds, which were the cartoon demagogue being voted out of office. We've got a vaccine around the corner, and in fact, there's been better news today. I don't know if you heard that. There's also a second vaccine that's even more effective than the one we heard about.
No, I've not heard that.
I heard about that. That was today. So the original vaccine was estimated to be 90% effective. This latest vaccine is just under 95% effective. So, London buses. We've waited how long? It's been 8 months or so. And suddenly we've got two massively effective vaccines being rolled out at the same time. Now, anyone who gets overexcited, remember these are still not going to be rolled out, available to the general public until early next year. And remember, there's going to be a lot of people who need them. So we're not going to be looking at what you might call normal routine goings on until potentially, I saw next winter. So summer hopefully there'll be some kind of recovery in normal routine, but I wouldn't expect it to be exactly as open and available for people to do whatever they want until probably next winter. But hey, the good news is hopefully there's going to be far less deaths, and people who are very vulnerable will obviously now be protected eventually. So this is good. Amongst all the horrible dread and bad news and mental health crises and economic crisis, we have to cling to the good news now and again. So that was good. And in fact, Mike, good things and bad things, I guess, come in threes, do they? Do they both come in threes?
I think it's just bad things they say come in
bad
threes.
Things, okay. Well, in this case, good things have come in threes because we had vaccine news, Trump being booted out of office, and now Dominic Cummings being removed from his post. Now, before we go back over why Dominic Cummings is such a figure of somewhere between ridicule and just animosity for vast majority of people in the country, Mike, I know the thing is, a lot of people, if they don't read political gossip or whatever, they won't really understand, but did you get much of an idea as to why Dominic Cummings is no longer in his position?
Not really. I don't really know what the actual reason is. I'm sure you'll have a pretty good
Yeah, well, I mean,
read on it, and you mixed obviously strongly with your own opinion.
no. I'm not gonna offer my opinion originally. I was just gonna. The reason I asked you that, Mike, was not to say,
Right.
oh, you're not aware of it, but I am. It was more the average Joe who isn't like a political anorak, doesn't really understand what's going on.
From I don't. All I really know is that he's had some sort of argument with Bojo.
Yeah, I think that's close enough. Effectively, they had a falling out. Mike, I'm sure is something you're familiar with. This time it seemed to be hose before bros. So I mean, you're very familiar with this kind of action. Just anybody watching this and seeing Mike wagging his finger, try going to a nightclub with Mike where you're either dancing or you're just hanging out and building up your confidence, and then the next minute when you really need him, you turn around. Where's he gone? He's necking some girl, and then suddenly, oh, Mike's left the club. Well, there goes my lift. There goes the round that he owed me, and yeah. So
There's your wingman.
yeah. So this is something Mike's very familiar with. But yeah, I think the general consensus seems to be that they had a falling out, and it was basically related to Bojo's missus, Carrie Simons, I believe her name is. And weirdly, I mean, it's not really weird. It's not weird that a prime minister would take advice from his wife or fiance in this case, or bit of stuff, as it is with Boris Johnson, because there's already that super injunction rumor about things that he may or may not have done. But anyway, so Dominic Cummings, it was weird because originally it said something like Dominic Cummings started briefing his favorite journalist that it was invented that he was being fired and that he always planned to leave around Christmas. And then within the next few hours, he did a very theatrical carrying all his stuff out of Downing Street, and it was confirmed he was leaving with immediate effect.
Don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Did I not see that? Did Johnson blame him for the leaking about the lockdown? I see something about that because obviously that was everyone was saying,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
there's a lockdown" before anything was announced and anything came out.
I
I'm
think,
sure I saw somewhere that that's something that they argued about, wasn't it? I don't know.
yeah, no, I think you're right. I think so basically, without going into too much tittle tattle about what you read, the biggest things about it were Boris Johnson was pissed off, like you say, about leaked information, particularly of the lockdown, because apparently, which is weird because Boris Johnson's never been professional his whole time as Prime Minister, and yet apparently he was angered because he thought it made him look unprofessional because he was defending a lockdown rather than announcing it to the country. He blamed Cummings for that, which is bizarre because things have been leaked the whole time Boris Johnson has been in office. It's like been a trademark of his time as Prime Minister that we hear about things 2 or 3 days before the government announces them. And there's a rumour that Dominic Cummings kept blaming other people, like, oh, it's cabinet members, it's people we can't trust in the cabinet, or it's members of the Tory party that are doing this. And that was part of his like reign of terror, where he could kind of throw people out of positions and order their advisors out, because apparently everything was you leaked this, you leaked that. And then Johnson turned it around and accused him of leaking. And I believe there was specifically he was pissed off because there was a leak in the newspapers that Cummings or one of his henchmen had referred to Carrie Simons as like Princess Nuts or something. And apparently that really offended Johnson, which, in a way you'd say, oh, yeah, very chivalrous. He's defending his other half. But you think about the things Johnson said about women, his ex-colleagues, Muslims, pretty much everyone. It's a bit rich that someone gives a playful nickname to someone. It's like, that's beyond the pale. You can't do that. But anyway, so Dominic Cummings is out of office. What was your personal opinion on Dominic Cummings, Mike? What did you
person. Top bloke. Top bloke.
The fact that I laughed at that.
I don't know why you're laughing. Top bloke.
No, but I'm the reason, you know, jokes aside, I'm asking you because you're a person who you know doesn't see the need to get too involved with the political scene. You have other interests, but you must have certain feelings about Dominic Cummings because he kind of transcended that whole political scene thing, didn't he?
Yeah. Look, I don't know. I tried to keep my opinions to just what I know. So
I'm not sure that's applied to any other late night large.
I try and base them on fact. No, you see, when I go off on one, it's because I fucking know, right? So when I'm spitting shit, right, it's spitting truths, yeah.
Like you're a grime artist, right? Okay.
If I'm putting people in their place, right, or telling them this is what's happening, this is what's wrong with this is what's happening here, that's because it's fucking true. That's because I fucking know, and I'm telling you, that's what's going on. But look, I don't know how good he was at the part of his jobs that he was good at. I don't know. I'm sure there's probably some reason why he was in the position he was in. Obviously, everyone thought he was a bit of a cunt, didn't they? When he went off on his broke down, when there was a first lockdown, and he went off on his jollies, didn't he, and did whatever. But you know what I mean? And everyone thought, who's this wanker then? What's going on here? I can't fucking leave the house, and this cunt's making trips around the country and popping out to fucking do whatever. Yeah, wanker. But that's kind of what everyone's opinion was. Well, not everyone's opinion, obviously, but most people that hadn't heard of him before, that's kind of what they based their opinion on.
Okay.
So, but it's hard to argue with it, isn't it? It's hard to say, no, you're wrong about him. Yeah, but he fucking did this and did that and said this. And he did do that, and he did say that, yeah. But you're still wrong about him. It's a bit hard to, do you know what I mean?
He's a difficult man to like, I think. Is probably a
difficult man to defend.
Yeah. So, I mean, just quickly for anyone who's unaware of how Dominic Cummings got to be in the position he is, there is actually a film made about him, wasn't there, with Benedict Cumberbatch, which probably only stoked his ego. So Dominic Cummings, effectively, he got the job because he was renowned as the mastermind who steered the Vote Leave campaign, which obviously contributed heavily towards the Brexit vote. Now, the problem I have with this is the problem I have with politics in this country in general, pretty much the whole time I've been alive, which is the whole winner takes all bollocks. The idea is that all matters is winning power. And once you've won power, well, you can do whatever you like with it. No one really holds you to account or whatever. But if you do win power, then you are fated by the gods, and you will have this reputation that follows you whenever. Look at Blair, for instance, who most people think is a war criminal, but there's still these people who fall at his feet because he won power. And it's just like this power. It's this amazing. The fact that Dominic Cummings effectively won the Vote Leave campaign, their victory, by outright lying. I mean, the biggest claims that they had were disproven almost immediately. So he said Turkey was joining the EU. That's not true. He said £350 million on the bus along with Johnson. That was debunked really quickly. Continues to be debunked. So I find it hard to respect someone who won a campaign, even if it was against the establishment, which it was. I agree with that. The establishment was in favour of Remain. But if you win it by outright deception, I mean, let's not forget, that's even forgetting the data harvesting, targeting of vulnerable people. This wasn't a campaign he won because of his charisma. he just outright lied, and he played on racial prejudice. So to be honest, the guy was a cunt before he went into Downing Street. But that's how he got into Downing Street. So Boris Johnson wanted him on board because, of course, Boris Johnson's whole brand now and then was Mr. Brexit. So he had to get the Vote Leave guy on board. Now, we're learning a lot about Boris Johnson. And one of the things we've learned about him, which I think was in the newspapers the last few days, is, I mean, to anyone who followed Boris Johnson's career, this won't come as a surprise, but he's a very lazy man. He doesn't do detail. But what we didn't necessarily know too much about was apparently he hates making decisions, which is incredible for somebody wanting to be prime minister. So the idea is he likes all the sideshow cavalcade and the buffoonery and the being the center of attention, being a leader. He wants other people to kind of not necessarily make the decisions for him, and he just rubber stamps them. So apparently people have learned that the best way to deal with Johnson is similar to what they used to say about Trump, is be the last person in the room with him on any particular day, and you'll be the person he'll most likely take advice from. So basically he brought Cummings on board because I think number one was because Cummings had a lot of ideas and wanted to make decisions, and number two is one thing Cummings was known as being very good at was being uncompromising, as in doing whatever it takes to get something done. And that clearly is a desirable quality if you're doing something that's going to be extraordinarily unpopular. So I kind of understood that. So that's how we got the position. And then, of course, we get to, when was it, Mike? Was it June that it came out about Cummings' lockdown escapades, or was it May?
May, wasn't it?
It was May, okay. So, of course, anyone will know that whether they knew who Cummings was or not, that he would then be renowned as the cunt that drove halfway up the country, spreading COVID to the northeast, completely unapologetically. He had COVID. He had all the COVID symptoms, as did his missus. They jumped in his bloody SUV or whatever it was, drove halfway up the country to Durham, to his parents' estate, which in a building which didn't have planning permission, and he owes about 30 grand of council tax that got written off. But anyway, the thing we were angry about was, of course, this was the total lockdown where no one was allowed to travel at all except for absolute emergencies, which it clearly wasn't. But worse than the original lockdown breach, which you could put down to idiocy brought on by desperation that he was potentially coming down really badly with COVID, was, of course, the second trip, where he claimed that he was testing his eyesight, visiting a beauty spot on his wife's birthday. And just to top it off, I mean, this was bad enough. Everyone was seething, right? And then Boris Johnson calls this press conference, which, again, I've said before, was one of the most disgraceful press conferences I've seen in my entire life. He just shamelessly lied, treated the public like complete idiots. In fact, believe he used the word integrity related to Cummings. And then to make it even worse, Cummings then appears in the Rose Garden and spends, another hour or so just making up the most obvious barefaced lies about what he was doing that a child would have seen through.
I think that is. I don't get that. I don't understand. Well, there's lots about that kind of the whole debacle really that I don't understand in a lot of ways. But what I don't get is, you'd have thought that being a politician, surrounded by politicians, and you really would have thought that they'd come up with better lies, wouldn't you? Do you know what I mean? Well, you're not just disappointed by that.
I was. I completely agree.
But you just think, surely to God here, you can come up with something better than that.
Oh God.
How is this? I mean, that is insulting. That is insulting that they can't even be bothered, or he can't be bothered, or whatever, to actually make up a decent lie. It's just like, do you know what? Actually, it doesn't fucking matter what we tell them. Yeah.
No, you hit the nail on the head, Mike. Do you think that speaks to the deep arrogance of Cummings that he? I mean, for one thing, Mike, when I say arrogance, I don't just mean what he said. The fact that he held a press conference at all completely contravened regular routine circumstances. Special advisors are not ministers. They should be calling press conferences. So to me, he might as well have sat in that chair, leaned back, and had a wank for an hour, because that's what it was like. The arrogance and the total egotistical narcissism of that idiot during that press conference. You get me?
Yeah. I think we've
Okay.
I think we said what we needed to say.
I think we've communicated the depths of antipathy for Cummings, but this is going to have. Sorry.
He's gone now.
He has, yeah. So
draw a line under that.
Hosanna, praise Jesus. He is out of Downing Street. A lot of people are speculating, what does this mean? Does this mean that Brexit is going to be softer? Does it mean that the civil service isn't going to be bullied anymore? I think people are probably overstating that. Things will probably. I'm not sure there'll be such an antagonism towards the media that there was, because one of the biggest things that came through in the Cummings era, other than the blatant corruption of giving contracts to people who connected with him and Boris Johnson, obviously, was the big rise. Mike, have you ever heard of client journalism? Have you heard of that phrase?
No.
So basically, journalism as a profession, what you're supposed to do is be completely separate and distinct from power. And the idea is you probe power, you probe their activities, you ask them hard questions, you get to justify things that people are upset about. What client journalism is effectively where you're hand in glove with power, and you're effectively repeating exactly what they want the public to hear, how they want to hear it.
Oh, well, we're all familiar with that.
Yeah, but I mean, this particularly.
That's what we're fed daily.
No, I mean, obviously, yeah. But what I mean is, it's got more and more obvious and more transparent. So, for instance, Laura Kuenssberg is a great example where she's renowned for this now. What she'll do is she'll spread little bits of political gossip saying an unnamed source said. Now that is really piss poor journalism, because if you have a juicy quote, you get the fucking name of the minister. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. A man on the street could have said it, but she does it because it means that she gets to hobnob with all these ministers, and they give her lots of secret little tidbits of information, but they don't have to risk their reputation at all with it. So it's a way of them just sniping at their colleagues via the BBC, or sniping at the opposition. They had one the other day. I mean, I'm not a huge Keir Starmer fan, but they had one the other day where she had an unnamed minister basically slandered Keir Starmer. Now that is like real gutter journalism, and in a democracy you shouldn't be allowing stuff like that. If you're going to insult the leader of the opposition, you fucking put your name to it. You don't say an unnamed source or an unnamed MP says this. It's just like, being in the playground. Oh, that big kid said you're a wanker. Which big kid? Oh, can't say. It's just, It's really infantile. But anyway, so this is the kind of journalism, that culture that Cummings created, where he would brief his little favoured journalists, where they would let out information that he thought would be good for his project. And then you get like Channel 4 and the Daily Mirror and people like that who got completely banned from being around the Conservative Party because they asked them hard questions. So we don't know whether that's going to change, but that's definitely something that happened while Cummings was on the job. Anyway, he's out the fucking door. Good riddance. It might be too late though, Mike, because this is basically the last week. Huh?
Damage is done.
Yeah, it's definitely done. This is the last week, effectively, of the Brexit transition end negotiations. If we don't get any kind of a deal this week, we will have no deal at all come January the 1st. And thanks to our press, most people don't seem to think that this will be an issue. We'll maybe go on to it in later shows. It will be absolute chaos, but we'll go on to that another time. Mike, the other big thing that has happened over the weekend, and I'm going to be very cynical and or rather, I'll play a cynical devil's advocate. You must have seen that Boris Johnson is now self-isolating again 2 weeks after apparently coming into contact with an MP who later tested positive for COVID-19. Now, people will probably instantly think, hang on, he's already had it. Well, yeah, but we don't know for sure that that is actually enough to stop yourself from getting the transmission again. So I've got no complaints about, he's been in contact, he has to self-isolate. But it's awfully convenient that this has happened like pretty much the day after he sacked Dominic Cummings, meaning he has 2 weeks without having to answer to the press.
How long ago did he come into contact with someone?
So this apparently, I was watching.
Hasn't the isolation period that he should have had already passed then?
Yeah, but he only got contacted by Test and Trace on like Sunday. But apparently he was with this guy on Thursday, I think.
Thursday just gone.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, it's a bit of a piss take. Mike, what do you think? Right. So we get the word that he has to self-isolate for 2 weeks. Incredibly convenient for him. But let's assume in good faith that, it definitely happened that way. So he's come into contact with this guy. They later release photos of him with this guy inside Downing Street and other MPs, apparently socially distancing. Now, I don't know if you've seen these pictures. They're maybe a fraction over a metre apart with no masks, indoors. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Apparently that's COVID safe, apparently. And what made me laugh, Mike, and this is the state this country is in, particularly with journalism, right, is there were questions asked about that, obviously. So they said, journalists were saying things like, I've seen the pictures, and is that right that you're having meetings in Downing Street where you're hardly a metre apart and not wearing masks? And some of the answers were things like, I think it was Matt Hancock, which, must be the most embarrassing figure on the face of the earth at the moment. So Matt Hancock responded with, well, you don't always have to wear masks in COVID-safe environments. Now, anyone who spends more than a couple of seconds thinking and analysing that sentence, COVID-safe environments, and someone in that environment contracted COVID. What do you say to things like that, Mike? When ministers actually think that this is a perfectly good answer.
Well, again, this touches back on what we said before about old Dominic Cummings, right? Like, it's just no thought's been put into that, is it? It's just to brush him off with anything. Oh yeah, don't worry about that, because here's this thing, and it is the way it is, because obviously I am who I am in the position I'm in, so you should just listen to me and it's cool, whatever. That's do you know what I mean? That's what it is, isn't it? That is.
Again, it's difficult this week, Mike, because I feel like you're hitting a lot of nails squarely on the head there. Do you know what I would also say, by the way, is I've said this to you. I want you to do this in between your other engagements after we finished, and you at home do this. The government have boycotted, amongst other things, Good Morning Britain, which obviously Piers Morgan presents, for the last 200 odd days. And finally, and I'm sure, again, no connection to Dominic Cummings leaving, they finally sent a minister to appear on the show, or remotely on the show. And it was Matt Hancock, who's always fun to watch for reasons that I already disclosed. And Piers Morgan tore him a new arsehole. He really did. Like I say, one of his answers was that. But like you say, Matt Hancock became health minister, I think, because there weren't that many other good ministers around, and he's stayed as health minister basically by virtue of crawling up Boris Johnson's arsehole. And yeah, when he was answering the questions, one of the questions that Piers Morgan put to him, which was pretty brave, he said, he started reading out the statistics: 50,000 dead, etc. Biggest death toll in Europe. The Cheltenham Festival, we locked down 2 weeks too late. The care home crisis, where COVID patients were put into care homes, etc., etc. Quick roll call of all of these failures, and then of course the failed testing of tracing. And he said, "Health Minister, why have you not resigned?" And Matt Hancock did exactly what you'd expect Matt Hancock to do, which is do this kind of face. Well, Piers, and then some bullshit about I'm working so hard with the vaccine and making test and trace work. And it's just embarrassing. But if you do get a chance to watch it, because it's very rare you see ministers genuinely being held to account. And Piers Morgan is a bellend, but he is very, very good. So
that's what I was going to say. It's probably very rare where I'm actually in Piers Morgan's corner as well. It's maybe one of very few times where I actually don't want to just punch him in the head.
Yeah. I can imagine Matt Hancock would want to after, the treatment he got. But obviously Susanna Reid joins in as well. But it was 20 minutes of relentless hard question. Matt Hancock doing that stupid grin and then like trying to distract. No, Minister, I've asked you this question. And just relentless, like terrible question after terrible question. And he's just squirming and grinning and like, I'll still be in a job. So basically, Dominic Cummings style.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
I think so in terms of Boris Johnson isolating for 2 weeks, which of course has come at a brilliant time because he's got less than a week to save us from no deal. So an absolutely spectacular time to do that. It's
obviously there's your excuse for nothing really happening.
Yeah, accidental no deal. Yeah. In terms of Mike, have you read a lot or listened to a lot about? I guess what I'm trying to say, Mike, is a lot of things that are happening at the moment. Does it have a bit of a last days of Rome feel about it? Everything that's unfolding at the moment.
What do you mean?
So I like listening to a guy, this brilliant journalist called Chris Hedges, who does a lot of stuff on American politics, but it applies almost as well to here. And what he does, he's been in a number of war zones, communist states, capitalist states, whatever. And he says, he reminds us that the American empire is an empire and it is collapsing. So he relates it to, the collapse of the British Empire, the collapse of, the Ottoman Empire, the Habsburg Empire, etc. And basically he's trying to learn lessons from, how empires decline and then eventually crash under the weight of their own contradictions or whatever. And he absolutely scathing about all of the problems in America. But when he lays it out, you do see, and you see the signs and you say, shit, it is happening again, isn't it? This is a crumbling empire. And the problem is, America is the most dangerous crumbling empire of all because they have nuclear weapons. I mean, slightly less dangerous without Trump at the helm, but still, is the American empire really going to, decline gracefully?
Well, the worry isn't. Well, obviously, it's a great weight off everyone's mind that fucking bellend is not in possibly the most powerful position in the world. But the concern that I get, kind of what you're saying, the concern there really would be that it was allowed to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
That to me signifies the beginning of the end.
Yeah, this is what I mean by sort of the last days of Rome. It's the decadence of the elites, The people, numerous uprisings, the decline in institutions, corruption, cronyism, just basically, again, the contradictions eating themselves as you spiral down. It was said that when the British Empire ended, we turned almost overnight from the world's largest creditor to the world's largest debtor. And America did something similar, because America was, I think, the world's largest creditor after the Second World War. And then when Reaganomics took hold and whatever, they became the world's largest debtor. Trillions and trillions in debt and growing, with China owning most of it. So anyway, sorry, it wasn't just about America. I was relating it to here because, again, although Brexit supporters won't want to hear it, the way things are at the minute, and there is less than a week to do anything about it, and this will happen in January. Whether or not we get a deal now, there will be chaos in January. We don't have any infrastructure ready, particularly not in Ireland, where there's a big chance of the Troubles restarting unless something serious intermediary comes in. We're going to have massive tariffs on all kinds of goods. Again, I'll go into that in another video. But what I mean is, when we boil it down, Mike, we're potentially looking at a permanent decline now. We have to accept that British living standards are going to decline significantly for this next generation and beyond, unless we take another turn.
I don't really know what that turn is likely to be right now.
No, this is my problem. There's no political out from this. But, you know, whether you voted Brexit or you didn't vote for Brexit, you have to accept, whether you're middle class, working class, whatever, our living standards are going to decline. Like, basic things that we used to think were easily affordable are going to become expensive.
Well, yeah. Didn't Rishi Sunak say something about that the other day? About how, did he say it, or was he quoted as having said it? I can't remember if it came directly from him or not. About like the fact that basically tax will skyrocket. And
yeah, I mean, he's got people in his party are desperate for him not to do that because we're Tories, we lower taxes. It's like, you can't have it both ways. Do you want to cut the fucking deficit, or do you want to cut taxes, or are you a fucking child? So they have to do something. And, you know, the idea of if we cut taxes, it'll stimulate the economy. We're going to have potentially 10% or more unemployment. This is not going to work. The only way you're going to do this is by raising taxes and maybe some targeted spending. But the bottom line is, from next year, the party's over. Whether we thought there was a party or not, the last 10 years for a lot of people have been a struggle. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of people have blamed the wrong enemy, and we're going to get the rough end of it. Because, to sum it up, it's very complex, but it's also very simple. To sum it up, Boris Johnson became the Prime Minister based on an unachievable lie. What I mean by an unachievable lie is not stretching the truth. What I mean is, Boris Johnson promised mutually incompatible things. Like things that in no realm or alternate dimension can exist and both be true at the same time. He's promised different things to different people. And what's happening now is him realizing that reality will never match what he's promised. So he's trying to deny reality. So that's when you get the Internal Markets Bill, where he's deciding to go back on a treaty he's only just signed and make us potentially an international gangster state. Because, I mean, me and you, I would imagine, both suspected the same thing, which is Cummings' plan and Johnson's plan was initially to just sell us out lock, stock to Trump. That was the plan. The plan was...
It looked pretty obvious that was kind of the game plan, yeah.
It was blow off the EU, tell them we don't fucking need to deal with them, sell us out lock, stock to Trump, sell out the NHS, agriculture, the motor industry. We've been flooded with garbage food and whatever, but Johnson will get a week's worth of good headlines saying, look, I signed a big deal with the US, aren't I a big boy? Before, you know, while the dust settles and everyone realized like what a massive pup they were sold, it's too late. So that was what the initial plan was. And of course, that only worked with Trump, because Trump didn't really care much for the rule of law, because, you know, he was a fascist. now we have someone who, as much as a corporate lickards as he is, Biden is not a fascist. He also cares about the integrity of the Irish border and the Good Friday Agreement. So Johnson is now effectively a rat in a trap. He has no way out. He's flailing around, breaking international law here, promising that nobody's going to back down there, saying that things will be okay. We'll just have a minor rough ride in January. So yeah, that's also the last days of Rome that I was thinking of as well, Mike.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of a minor rough ride we're going to have. Like I think we touched on it before. Was it? I don't remember. No, I don't think it was last week. Last week we were all positive and shit, weren't we? I think maybe the week before. I think we touched on how actually, if you think this year's been bad,
just wait for 2021. All those 2020 memes, the second they go out of date, they're back in date. You just need to put a 1, because if anything, things could be even worse. I hate to say it. I don't want to depress people.
No. Positivity. That's what we want.
Sorry. Unless me or Mike die of COVID in the meantime, we will keep ranting about how shit everything is for your entertainment.
We will.
How's that?
We will.
How's that for positivity?
That's about as positive as anyone can be about anything, really. If that doesn't instantly make everyone's lives better, then fucking I don't know what will. Forget it. Give up.
Yeah. So I want everyone to take away the big things that we've discussed tonight. Particularly, go and watch that Piers Morgan interview with Matt Hancock. Please do mentally picture Dominic Cummings just getting his knob out and masturbating in front of the press for an hour. Anything to add, Mike? Before we
to that?
Huh?
To that? No. No. Just the usual, isn't it? Like, subscribe. I've not seen anyone kind of tear into you. I've not seen anyone tear into you. Do you know what I mean? I've not seen anyone call you out.
Yeah, there's not nearly enough abuse, is there, below the line?
Yeah. He gets away with too much.
Yeah, come on. Can't you Boris and Brexit fanboys and Mike fanboys just leave some abuse underneath?
Yeah, just call him out. Call him out for whatever reason you want to. I'm fine with it.
We're big boys. We can take it.
You have my permission. But yeah, no, like, tell people if you like listening to us ramble about shit, offering our opinions that you may or may not give 2 fucks about. Then let us know. Let us know if you do care. Let us know if you don't.
Do you know what irks me a little bit, Mike, is...
Oh, here we go. He's back on again. Back on his
No. I'm back in the room. No, what irks me a little bit, Mike, is comparatively, we have a pretty derisory number of views. Now, we love the people that do view it. Thank you very much for tuning in. But I wonder, should we add maybe some conspiracy theories about vaccinations and stuff, and then maybe we get a few thousand views and a lot of influence in public life, apparently?
Depends how much you compromise your own integrity, doesn't it?
Okay, so next week, this is a promise. So next week, tune into Late Night Large. Mike Large will be appearing in nothing but a tinfoil hat. How's that?
I mean, you're writing checks there.
Who's going to say no to that?
You lucky people. Yeah. On that bombshell,
we will grow you next week, people. Let's try and get some optimistic news next week. But until then,